It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is What Made the Cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, as we get you going here, and JT's nice enough to join us every week and kind of give us some and dip in here, but we've had really rough moments for this BYU team this year where they've gotten, obviously some adversity. JT, with Richie Saunders being out, number one, you feel for the kid and how awful that is. And number two, we've talked about how important it is to have all three of those guys going for BYU to be successful. How can they do it now?
Well, first of all, Alex, JJ, and the other Alex, I need the sound cut where it says I have all the answers, because I don't think I ever heard that in my life before.
We will give you that title, and I will make it. We'll turn it all over to you, because I honestly I don't know how they're going to do it.
Well, so first things first, I just want to say what an emotional weekend it was for BYU fans. You know what I mean? Start on Saturday. I'll start my weekend on Friday, because I was a part of a dinner, of an event with Jimmer and family. And a few teammates, and it was emotional, man. Like seeing him talk and his career and what we meant to him and how that felt. It was touching. Like JJ, you see me cry a lot, so we don't have to talk about me being a melted butter, as you say it in Brazil.
You emotional? Never seen that before.
It's only when you get poked in the eye. It's because I got poked in the eye. These aren't real tears.
Just blame it on that incident.
Right. Yeah. And then you fast forward to Saturday, where you walk in the arena and everything is just plain white with Jimmer jerseys. And then as soon as the game starts, Richie goes down by himself. And I think all of us, we were in the BYU TV studio, and the moment he goes down, we all just gasped for air. We go, right? And so, and then you go to the first half, you see, Richie being taken, and leaving the gym, and then the retirement ceremony, and then it's a close game, and Colorado makes a close game, and BYU gave them all the chances to win the game, and BYU was truly playing with fire that day, to then winning in overtime, and so such an emotional roller coaster. I found out about the injury late on Saturday, and so and at first thought, it's like, how do you move forward? And you are correct. I think from emotionally, you can't. That's your emotional leader. That's your senior leader. Kevin Young says that Richie was the face of the Kevin Young era. I'll even go far to say that Richie was the last of the Mohicans. I don't think we're ever going to see another college player stay put for 4 years like Richie Saunders did. I hope I am, vehemently wrong with Dean Ruckert from Timpview, and that he becomes that type of player. But, in this day and age, and so there's a lot that you need to replace with Richie. On the technical side, I think you have a couple of options. You have option A, which is you completely go in on offense and you say it's a race to 130 points, and we're going to see who gets there first. And you play Alexei Kostic or Tyler Murus, 20 minutes a game apiece. That's what you do. Or you turn this into, hey, we are going to load up defensively and let AJ and Rob do their thing on offense, and you play 2-3 zone defense, and you bring in Hadim Boop as a starter. I don't see a ton of other options, to be honest with you. And Keba Keita is already a little bit on the mends with a hand injury that Kevin Young mentioned after the game on Saturday. And then Bidu, the big man from the G League, just hasn't provided that great of a boost. And so, emotionally, I don't think you move on from Richie Saunders. You can't. Technically, either you literally shoot for the moon, or, it becomes the AJ and Rob show.
No one's going to be able to replace Richie. And obviously, you're going to have to lean on your two other stars. They're going to play 40 minutes a game. Have you seen enough from anybody on that roster to think, man, with the opportunity, with more minutes, can they give us something, anything that we have been missing this season? Did you see enough in that Colorado game with Richie out to think that there's somebody that could come in and make some big shots, just give you like 10 points a game?
Sadly, JJ, we have not. And I think that as you look at that, I wouldn't say even Kennard Davis can be fully reliable at this point. And I don't think that's a knock on Kennard. He is the player that he is. But, aside from the one game that I said that he was going to be 5 for 8, and then he ended up being 5 for 8, we just haven't seen a ton from him, right? And what this team is missing desperately is a player like me, a player like Tavernari, where it's a player that will not be a liability on defense, will be able to be a catch and shoot, spread the floor guy, and be able to help for 25, 30 minutes a game. It's what Mag did last year to perfection. It's what Tavernari did for perfection. I mean, Richie Saunders had been their most consistent three-point shooter. And I mean, I want to emphasize, like, Robert Wright is not a three-point shooter. He is shooting, in the high 40s right now, which is great. But he's a creator. He's shooting off the dribble. You're talking about pure catch and shoot guys. BYU doesn't have that. Tyler Morris, has been, and Alexei Kostic has been shooting borderline 30% from three. I mean, not even you can't even get in the Hall of Fame with baseball with those numbers. And you know what I mean? And so to be fair, I just haven't seen consistency by one player. I haven't seen consistency from three players. And so I think it would be the situation where every game they are going to be hoping that someone else other than AJ and Rob step up, and don't get it twisted. AJ and Rob cannot have bad games from now until they finish their season.
Wow.
Quite a week to have to do this too, going to Tucson and going into that environment where they won last year, and all the emotions that went with that and all the controversy that went with that game. And then on top of it, they have maybe the hottest team in the entire conference, Iowa State, who got the win over Houston over the weekend. I mean, this is a brutal week for the Cougs to have this happen.
Well, I mean, let's talk about they faced the number 4 team in the country on Wednesday and then the number 6 team in the country on Saturday. Talk about having a relaxing week after your senior leader just go down, And so it's one of those things that I will say this. I don't think that this is a make or break week for BYU. I think that was, I fully think that their season had reached a peak in terms of this is going to be a make or break situation for BYU at the Kansas game. Now, with the Richie situation, I personally feel that you almost get a reset, and that situation becomes the Iowa State game on Saturday. I don't think a win over Texas Tech, with Texas Tech being ranked in the top 15, I don't think that's enough. I think BYU needs a top 10 win to be able to keep hopefully fighting for a top 5 seed. I think if BYU, they have 6 games left. I think if they win, they lose to Arizona on the road, and then they win against Iowa State, and then they win at home. I don't remember who they had.
UCF.
And then they UCF at home, and then they go and win one of either Cincinnati or West Virginia, and then you just play all of your cards for the Texas Tech game. I think if they win if they go 4-2, they still have a fighting chance to be a 4, maybe a 5 seed. Anything else other than that, I think they're going to be a 6, 7, maybe an 8 seed, and and then the question becomes, guys. Do you have buyer's remorse from all of the NIL donations? Do you start planning for next year with a lower budget? I think these are serious questions that in today's age of collegiate sports, you start asking yourselves. Obviously, you have all the right answers. I mean, 5 rotation guys for BYU have been out with injuries. I mean, you're not talking about just 1 or 2 guys. You're talking about the backup point guard. You're talking about the 6th man. You're talking about the backup center. You're talking about the backup 4-man, and you're talking about the senior leader who was arguably, one of the top guards forwards in the country and had aspirations of being drafted. And so you have the right, quote unquote excuses, but will donors be able to back that up and be able to say, hey, absolutely, we're going to put another $20 million this year. Just see what we can do next year. I think that's a very valid question to ask.
No, you bring up a great point. Obviously, you were going to go – if you had a chance to get A.J. DeBonsa, you're going to get A.J. DeBonsa. You're going to go all in and you're going to do what you have to do. I don't blame BYU one bit for that. But moving forward, you bring up a good point. What's more important right now in college basketball, to have that top star or to build depth? And how do you allocate your resources to build the right team? If you're looking around college basketball right now, who do you think has that figured out the most?
Oh man, until the season started, I was going to say Kansas State, and then everything happened this last week, but I would probably say, Florida has it figured out, because Florida is looking pretty darn good this year. I thought UConn had figured out, and, UConn has had, a so-so year, but they're still right up there, right? And so I would say Texas Tech has figured out back-to-back years. I would say Houston has it figured out. I'll probably say, even Arizona has it figured out, because last year they were also pretty good. And so I'll probably say that, the top 5 teams in the Big 12 have it figured out. And then you probably have, the top 2 teams of each conference have figured out. Maybe 3 or, maybe depending on the conference, the SEC, you go the top 3 or 4 teams, the Big 10. But aside from that, nobody else has been a constant, just a consistent, quote unquote, blue blood in this NIL era. BYU had been, if we want to, just be able to draw a line and say, hey, in this NIL era, BYU is a blue blood, and I say that in terms of who has had success since, paying players became a thing. I would put BYU up there. It's a sad thing because, the ROI on the big investment by the donors won't be seen this year unless AJ and Rob, truly become, Frodo and Samwise, Batman and Robin, Batman and Superman. You name the two that, the duo, the Kobe and Shaq, the Scotty and Michael, that you want to do it. Because the only way that BYU is going to go somewhere is if those two have, otherworldly performances night in and night out.
So as you see this thing coming down to it, and BYU's obviously they take a hit like that. What does missing somebody like that in the NCAA tournament mean usually, JT? Because I know it sounds like a dumb question, I think, but also, I mean, that's just a different level, and it's also one of those places that they didn't just lean on Richie last year; they needed him for every game. Now you have these guys, and it changes the face of the tournament, I think, for everybody.
Well, and that's part of the reason why about a week and a half ago, I think right after our segment, I tweeted out about, hey, this is what my expectation is. If BYU, they have 8 games left. If they go 8-0, 7-1, 6-2, and I just went down, I broke that down. What I would say is whatever I wrote there, and I revisited today to be able to share what I shared with you guys, knock down another spot, maybe even 2. Right? BYU, I mean, JJ, how many times you were covering us and we're supposed to be a 6 seed or maybe even a 5 seed, but we always get punished because of the Sunday play. And so that's one. And then you're losing a player of Richie's magnitude, forget about it. The tournament committee will absolutely knock down BYU a seed or 2. And so at this point, if BYU goes 4-2, maybe win a game or 2 in the Big 12 tournament, expect them to be probably a 6 or 7 seed. I would be surprised if they are a 5 seed, based on those factors.
Before we cut you loose, JT, I wanted to go back to Jimmer, and you're right. It was pretty cool to go down memory lane 15 years later. It's crazy it's been that long, but you had a chance to go to the thing on Friday night. I'm sure you had a lot of great moments behind the scenes. What are some of the things you can share about this past weekend that you're going to stick in your mind for quite a long time that were pretty special for you?
Well, so, I think Dave Rose said it best. The only thing that has changed about Jimmer in the last 15 years have been the fact that he developed a sense of fashion because of his wife. So, I think that's a fair thing to say, but what I would say is, I was there the early years, JJ, when, you're covering us and he wasn't even playing. Yeah. Like I'm talking about when, you guys would sit behind, when you guys were sitting behind us on the bench and Jimmer would barely come out of the floor of the bench his freshman year. Like he had a solid year, but it wasn't great. And then his sophomore year, he got a little bit better. He started some games, not all. And then it wasn't until his junior year against, against Wake Forest, against Arizona, that you truly saw what he was becoming capable of. And so to me, he and I were texting earlier today, just checking in because we're good friends. And like, I feel grateful that I was there during the early years, right? I mean, I always point out as I'm teaching my sons and as I coach my 7th grade basketball team, that's getting pretty good. We'll talk about that another day. But I always go to them and I say, look, basketball was my way out. I came here from Brazil. And if it wasn't for basketball, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. And, I can always turn to them and tell about, Jimmer. I'm like, look, this is a guy that you all have seen in practice that, he has talked to you guys. He had to be developed. He wasn't born with it. It wasn't just like, he shows up and, he was shooting from half court. It took a lot of sacrifice, a lot of effort. And to me, the journey means, almost as much as the destination because of what you go through and you learn. And those are one of the things that you saw with Jimmer, especially in the early days when, he was just the kid from Glens Falls, the kid from upstate New York, and nobody really knew who he was. And he became someone all because of his merits and his hard work and effort and, and just attitude.
Jonathan Tavernari, JT, as always, man. It's not under great circumstances this week as we had to talk about all the it's the worst to have to talk about injuries. It's just the absolute worst, and to see that kid's BYU career come to an end. Richie Saunders is just, so many people have had amazing moments watching BYU because of Richie Saunders and what he brought to this team, and it's a real bummer for that kid. And I hope that he gets it all back and he starts fighting and figures out what that pro career is going to end up looking like. And we certainly wish them the best. JT, we wish you the best too, man. And we wish your 7th grade team the best. We did this with Riley Nelson with the football side of things. He was always giving us a standings update on the Ute Conference for his boys.
Well, hey, listen, a couple of things, I teased Richie and I said, the last person that you passed on the all-time scoring list was me. And you passed me by just a few points. I'm like, that really had to happen after you passed me, huh? And so, but the one thing that, I shared a message with him because I admire him and I look up to him and I think he's amazing. For those who have a chance to see, go to the BYU TV app and watch his, I think it's True Blue.
It's Deep Blue,
the Deep Blue, the one from Richie is special, But I will say this: I coach the number 1 7th grade basketball team in the country in the Adidas circuit, and I'm actually looking at my son as I speak now. He's pretty good. He has offers to go overseas. My wife has vetoed that vehemently, and and so. Which is funny because when I was 16, I left my house to come over here, and I'm like, if I hadn't done that, we wouldn't have met. And so, my team is pretty good. I have about 10 kids. I have 2 different rosters of 16 kids of the same age, and I have about 10, 12 of them that are special. I'm trying to keep them together for high school. So I can be the next Quincy Lewis and dominate high school basketball in Utah.
I love there was a skosh of humility for a second. Where he's like, we have a pretty good 7th grade team, and then it was all, we're the number 1 team in the country.
I'm coming for you, Quincy Lewis.
I'm going
records.
at it. I love it. It's the most JT thing that's ever happened on the program. Jonathan Tavernari, BYU great. Thanks for hanging out with JT as usual, man.
As JJ knows, I'm a very down-to-earth, level-headed, and emotional guy. So,
absolutely.
thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks,
You
JT.
bet. There you go.